Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Kevin Creatives. Check out my custom SD World Heroes CAO Wing Gundam. And I'm actually pretty excited for this. This is the very first SD I've ever messed with. I'm actually typically not an SD fan just because there's just a lot of work that's involved and they're kind of small and all that and there's a few parts. But then over time, as I started working on kits and everything, I was like, you know what? That could be a challenge in itself. There's a couple other ones that I actually like a lot more than this one, but the reason I did this one first is because it just looks so complicated in terms of the masking and everything because it's so limited in its parts. There's a lot of colors going on. There's a lot of layers of colors going on here, so there's just so much masking that was involved. So I figured, all right, let's just get this one out of the way first. It's not my favorite. I still really like it. If I mess up, it's okay, because I could tell just from looking at it, it's probably the most complicated SD that I own in terms of the amount of work that's needed to go into it to make it look right and look good and everything. So I figured if I could do this right, I could definitely do the rest of them right, because the rest of them are a lot simpler. And now when I do the next one or anything else moving forward, by comparison, they'll be so much easier. So that's kind of where I was at. So to start things off, I figured I'd try out some putty and try fixing the seams. I like to try that out from time to time. And I was like, all right, this guy's got a couple of seams that seem pretty basic, nothing too complicated. It's just the shoulders and then the sheath for the sword. And the shoulders look pretty great. I mean, I have to say the seam is pretty much gone, on the top part at least. On the sides of the shoulders, I did the best. I mean, those are tiny little spots that are just hard to work with, so I didn't want to fill it with putty and then not be able to clean it up and have it just be messy. So I kind of just left those. But the top of the shoulder, that was the main seam, and that looks pretty good. The shoulder bits now look like one cohesive part, and that's what you want out of filling your seam, so what can I say? In terms of the paint scheme, I think it came out pretty much great. There was 3 different types of blue on this, so already off the bat, I knew I had a challenge on my hands, because it's like, all right, how are we going to differentiate everything? How are we going to make sure that they are the correct colors? What's the plan here? So what I did was I started off with the lightest blue first. I had to figure out all the layers of this kit before I could paint anything, because there's just so much going on. There's red on top of white, there's white on top of gold, there's gold on top of red, there's blue on top of gold, there's gold on top of blue. There's just everything. Everything's mixed up in so many different ways that the toughest part of this kit was planning out all the different steps of masking and everything. So I started with a very light blue, the lightest blue there was, on these couple of parts on the skirts and the shoulders. I painted that light blue first, masked that off, then I painted it with just a slightly darker blue because I wanted to make sure that it was still that same kind of blue, because the light blue and the slightly, I don't know, less light blue, those are in the same vein on the color wheel. They're kind of right next to each other, but the standard blue was a much darker Wing Zero type of blue. So I had to make sure that we were keeping those 2 blues in the same sector and then keep the main blue in its own sector, basically. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just the way I thought of it. Thank God I took off the masking tape once everything was all said and done, and it's very distinguishable. They still look very similar because I used the same paints, I just mixed them up in different ratios. So it was really easy to do the darker blue because those were separate pieces. Those were just on the forearms, the chest, the back, and the wings, so those had nothing to do with any other parts, so it was easy to just do that. And everything was masked until the very end, so it was just a matter of, I hope this all works out. I was planning on using the included stickers. I did for the shoulders in terms of the masking, but for everything else it just didn't seem to work out as well, so I just did that freehand. And let me tell you, on a tiny kit like this, yeah, that took a lot of work to get all this tiny little masking done. It was a challenge, but I think it came out pretty well. There's some slight bleeding with my masking. It's not 100% perfect. If you get up close and personal, you're gonna see some slight issues here and there, but from a distance, standing on the shelf, I have to say everything came out pretty great. So in terms of the next step, I think I did red. I think red was the next layer, and then I masked that red part off and then did the white. The reason I did the white last, normally I would have done the white first because the white is the deepest layer on this kit. It's on the very bottom. The white was needed on pretty much everywhere. I mean, it's the most basic color on every Gundam. Problem was, if I had done the white first, I would have had to go back and forth, basically. I would have had to do some stuff in white, mask and paint over it, and then redo that part that I did. It would have been a lot of back and forth with the way this kit is designed if I had done that first. And then very last was the gold. And the gold came out pretty solid. I'm very happy with it. I made sure to use Gaia notes because they have a very lustrous and bright color scheme in terms of their metallics. They look very nice, so I went ahead with them, and it really shows here. I mean, I have to say, this kit has gold everywhere. It's a very regal design. It's supposed to have that Shogun Japanese aesthetic with the warrior look and everything, the tassels and everything. So I wanted to make sure that stood out, and I'm very happy with the results, especially on camera and in pictures. It really shines with light hitting it nicely, especially against all these flat colors that I did in between. I did some slight hand painting details for the chest. There's a couple of silver bits. Not the best. Kind of wish I just went ahead and masked it. I was just so over masking and I just wanted to be done with it. That was like, for these little parts, we're just doing it by hand. Screw it. And it came out okay. I mean, whatever. It's not the focal point in the kit. Gets the job done. The sword was a bit of a challenge. I did that last. I basically had to do that on its own because it's just one part with just so many different colors going on that I basically just said, screw it. We're just going to have to treat this as its own thing and just go back to it, because trying to incorporate that into everything else would have just been a pain. But I think for that, I basically just painted it black, left the hilt black, painted it gold, masked that off. I think I did the blue and then the silver, or the silver then the blue. It came out pretty spot on. I got the colors the way I want them to. It looks accurate. It doesn't look like one boring white piece anymore. It actually looks like a cool sword with all the different colors going on, with the blue accents in between the blade and the hilt and everything. So I was very happy about that. Can't complain, especially since all this tiny masking actually did pay off. I was really concerned that there were some spots that I think it's covered. It's really hard for me to say, but we're just gonna hope for the best. And when I removed the tape, I was pleasantly surprised. This is the first kit, and one of the only kits probably ever, that I actually used the stickers for the eyes. The eyes are pretty complicated. They're just one big flat piece of plastic. I could do a bunch of masking to get the eyes the way I want them to, but I was like, screw it, the sticker will do. It's just one piece, who cares? Admittedly, it looks great. It honestly looks pretty freaking great. The metallic green they use on this sticker pretty much matches the metallic green I used for the jewel on the head crest. Yes, the jewel looks slightly better in the lighting. You can see it's a bit more brighter and all that, but the eyes look pretty dead on, and they are a nice shiny metallic sticker, so I really can't complain. For an SD, because of the specific style and everything and the work that would have been required to get this look, this is fine. I mean, you can't tell the difference. I'm not complaining at all. The only reason I have an issue with stickers normally is because they look like stickers. It's just very apparent. It's very obvious. I don't like them. Another spot that I'm really happy with is the sides of the face. I don't know what you call those, the little wing bits things on the sides. They came out pretty solid. I mean, there was a lot of teeny tiny masking there because those aren't separate pieces. Those red bits with the white and gold accents on the sides of the face, that's all one piece. So just a lot of masking and just being very careful. So glad it came out the way it did, and yeah, can't complain. Obviously, this kit is not very posable. You're not going to get them in anything fancy, but it's nice to have it on the shelf, especially with all of this metallic paint. So if you're a fan of the SD line, I really do urge you to learn how to paint, because out of the box, they look like trash. I'm sorry, they do. SDs are made up of, I don't know, 3 colors. They do try to break it up where they can, but for the most part, they just give you a ton of stickers and say, make it work. And it looks bad. I'm sorry for all you SD fans out there that don't paint your kits. They look bad. So take a look at this. It's not perfect. I'm going to be the first to say it. It's definitely not perfect. I hope I do better. This is a very complex kit in terms of the paint scheme and everything. There's a lot of colors just overlapping pretty much everywhere in every way. There's a lot of planning that you have to do ahead of time to make sure that the colors match and you're not wasting your time going back and forth between colors. The results are worth it, because that's the thing. As basic as these SDs are, when you paint them, they look like some of the best kits out there. It's hard to say that this one doesn't look as good or not better just because it's such a complex design packed so tightly together. Right off the bat, I can see how much work went into this, and you can immediately see how things went about, and you can plan for that yourself. Part of the reason I get into the SDs and the HDs and other companies altogether is because I want a challenge. Sometimes I don't want to just clip out the parts and paint them and put them together. Sometimes I want to do some masking. Sometimes I want to figure out, well, how do I make this look better? How do I do this like that? You know, how do I spice it up? And I like the challenge of the SD being 20 parts maybe, and then just figuring out, how do I make this look good? So overall, guys, I think that's pretty much all that I can say about a kit like this. There's a lot of pain and a lot of work that went into this. It took several months. I know that's pretty crazy for an SD, but if you want to make it look pretty much as perfect as possible, you got to put in the time. And even with all the little mistakes here and there, with the masking not being 100% perfect and everything, I have to say it came out pretty great. Because at the end of the day, this is a tiny kit with tiny pieces that I still added details and shading to. That's another thing that I want to mention. It's how do you shade a piece that's so small? You just paint on top of it. I mean, it kind of just ruins the shading. So even that takes a little bit of know-how and practice to figure out how to do shading on much, much, much smaller parts. And that's part of the fun of this stuff. So anyways, guys, as always, I urge you to paint your kits and try something out. It's fun to do it. I mean, if you're going to do master grades and perfect grades, you could probably get away with just putting them together, but something like this, like I said, it's going to look bad. I'm just telling you right now, out of the box, it's going to look bad. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some inspiration and some tips. Please provide me with some as well. I always need some. I'm constantly bugging all my friends. I mean, I swear my catchphrase is, I need an idea. I need inspiration. I need something. Give it to me, and I'll see you next time. Peace.